dissolve the ego every day, as it says in that topic? Well, it is easy actually. It is as easy as sitting relaxed, laid back, like I'm doing now. You just go to bed, basically. You don't need to do anything because the ego is dissolved um, hundreds of times during the day when you're just doing stuff. And it is also definitely dissolved each night when you go to bed, right? If you go to bed, what happens? Well, everything disappears. So not only the separate self sense, but everything disappears. The world disappears. Everything disappears. You basically die. It is the exact same thing, basically, as dying. And yeah, that's also why for example, in dream yoga, they practice in the dream bardo in Tibetan Buddhism, and especially the Chöd tradition, for example. They speak about these different bardos in which we can appear, basically. And one of those bardos is the dream state. This is also a bardo which we are experiencing this very moment. So in the dream state, there is another bardo, or the dream state is another bardo, which is very similar to what happens when we die, according to the Buddhists at least. And when we practice dream yoga, or which is basically not basically, but it's similar to lucid dreaming. Um, yeah, you could say that dream yoga takes off where lucid dreaming stops. Lucid dreaming aims to help you wake up and remain conscious in the dream, whereas dream yoga takes that further and you start practicing there. The Buddha famously has been said to have been teaching in his sleep, just as he did in his waking state. And not to make a comparison between me and the Buddha, but I actually walk around oftentimes in my dreams telling people it is a dream. That is just my experience, and it has happened many times. So yeah, so doing practices, according again to some Buddhists, is that doing meditative practices or spiritual practice in the dream state can be even more successful or even more powerful than doing it in a waking state. I have done that myself to some extent, meaning I have been meditating in my dreams, and yeah, that has been really powerful. Actually, it's a really interesting experience. I think, yeah, I mean, it's not nothing. I don't think it's necessary by any means, but it's interesting, especially if you have the ability to be lucid in your dreams. I would definitely encourage you to try it out if you feel like it. For me, it sometimes became so powerful. I woke up from it, but yeah, meditating in dream. I actually practiced dream yoga many years ago because I didn't have too much time during my days, and I thought, I have 6 7 hours each night. Why not wake up or be lucid during that time and meditate? I have all the time in the world, during the night. It was really hard though, so it's not. Yeah. Anyway, back to dissolving the ego. The ego that happens. That happens each time we go to bed at night, and then there's another ego, I guess, appearing in the dream self, or the astral body. Sometimes it's an etheric body. You can differentiate between those different ways, but yeah, to make it simple, we could just say the astral body. Being in that state, and a new ego is there. You're running away from things, you're scared of things, you are happy you see things or whatever, and you believe you're in the character in that dream. You believe the dream is real unless you become lucid in it. And yeah, so we can wake up from that, as well as we can wake up from this dream. And when by waking up, we don't mean we wake up somewhere else. We don't wake up from the dream. We wake up inside of the dream. We realize that it is a dream. We realize that this is a character that has been played, and we previously identified with it. So the dissolving of the ego is in the waking state is yeah, that's just realizing you are dreaming, basically, just as you do in the dreaming state or in that type of bardo. And then, of course, during the night, we go even further. We go into deep dreamless sleep. And in the Tibetan traditions, they call it sleep yoga, which is even harder than lucid dreaming, at least for me, and I think for most people, where we can remain conscious even during the dreamless sleep state, which is really hard and difficult. It takes a lot of practice, but there are practices for it. And if you ask Ramana Maharishi, for example, the only thing that remains in deep dreamless sleep is the true self, as he calls it, and some of the, in Advaita Vedanta, for example. There's definitely an ego that is the soul. There's nothing there. There's no world. There's no ego. There's no character. There's even nothing to even identify with. There's just this pure spaciousness, openness, which can be realized in a waking state too, which is also like ego dissolving. So we bring the deep dreamless sleep state into the waking state, or we realize that very same thing that people can realize in deep dreamless sleep through tons of practice. And we realize that everything is a dream, or somewhat like a dream. It's we don't. It's just the words. It's just pointing to something that it's ephemeral in somewhere, or it's empty. It is emptiness, as they say again in the Buddhist tradition. We could call it the cloud of unknowing. We could call it I don't know, Godhead in the Christian mystical tradition. It's the same experience, basically. Can be interpreted in different ways, and it's even not exactly the same experience if you really dig down, dig deep. We see that people have different experiences. That's what I like about A.H. Almas Hamid, who has put forward the diamond approach, which I think points to that very thing that this is we can have different experiences of enlightenment, for sure. And it is almost like a spectrum of experiences that we can have. And seeing through a prism, or seeing through the diamond, with all this, when light goes through it, we see there's all, everything's here. We can experience so many things within that, and we can have the experience of emptiness, we can have experience of no self, we can have experience of vast spaciousness, we can have experience of oneness, we can have the experience of being love. Satchitananda is one way of putting it, like they do in the Hindu, some of the Hindu traditions. We can experience God or Godhead. I speak about in. I don't want to belittle it. I don't know why I did that. that yeah. I mean, I think I did it because God is usually associated with a guy in the cloud, and that is not the experience of Godhead or true being, for sure. It's very different. It's just, we can experience pure being, and another way of saying it, or the power of now, as Eckart Tolle says. So those have different qualities to it. It's well worth looking into that too, or just loving your own experience and going through it. So yeah, we are dissolving the ego each night. We die every night. We are reborn every morning, or and also in the waking state, when we're not thinking. I mean, there can be this subtle egoic identification still, but there are moments in which the ego falls away, even during the day. I would say, for many people, we just we're not really there, and there's no ego there. There's no self-referential thoughts, and also just being in flow for many people, usually during some kind of activity. But in those activities, people, when they are in flow, like being in the zone, playing golf or basketball or singing or dancing, whatever, playing, that is also sort of ego dissolution, similar to it is the flow state, or I think it's apt to call it similar to sahaja samadhi, or sort of a non-dual state in which we are free. We're free from the egoic structure. We're free from self-referential or narrative thoughts, and yeah, it's a pleasant experience to have the ego dissolving. And it also points to the fact that it's not this very esoteric thing. It happens all the time. It happens every night. Of course, it's a big thing when it happens to us during our waking state and the egoic structure really falls away permanently, or even like we really notice it falling away, as they call an opening or kensho. That is true. So but I think it's also important to see that it's not this extreme phenomenon that it sometimes sounds like. For some people, they don't even know that they have realized it because it's been so subtle for them during their awakening process. The continuum has been so subtle, so they don't even know it. Yeah, because there have been so small changes over a large period of time. For many people, there are big changes, big points in their career, spiritual career, in which this opening happens, but it's not like that for everyone. And yeah, that's also important to see. And you have your own journey. It doesn't really matter what other people's journey is.